it's not good for you. There will be ramifications and repercussions. If you're going to eat plants, you need to cook the shit out of them. And so
I hope I have your attention here.
A balanced diet appeals to the vast majority of people because it implies that it ticks all of the boxes in terms of complete nourishment. If you're consuming a wide variety of foods and beverages, everything in moderation, so to speak, then you must be hitting all your dietary needs, right? Unfortunately, not only is this completely untrue, but in fact you'll be incurring an imbalance of nutrients and additionally inappropriate inflammation in the body. Despite having every food group present in your diet and aiming for a nice broad spectrum of colours on your plate, there are a number of reasons why you'll wind up deficient in key nutrients required for optimal health. By the end of this video, you'll have a deep understanding of exactly why and how this is precisely the case.
Let's start with breakfast. Whether you eat first thing in the morning or much later in the day, you are breaking your fast. And the best way to break any fast is with high fat, saturated fats, as it's gentle on our metabolism. If you're eating grains and fruits, some skimmed milk perhaps, you're going to induce a huge blood glucose spike. And elevating your blood sugar is a problem for many reasons.
Inappropriate high blood sugar can glycate every tissue and cell in your body, lead to fat gain, cause inflammation, and it damages literally every artery, which is going to lead to the devastating complications that go hand in hand with type 1 or type 2 diabetes if you don't fix your high blood sugar. Oh my God, bananas and oatmeal are very unhealthy. Who knew?
Another issue here is that a breakfast containing grains is going to provide the body with unnecessary anti-nutrients like lectins, gluten being very well known.
Gluten is a protein. A protein is a long chain of amino acids. It's like a string of pearls. And it's the stomach's job to break that string of pearls, liberate the individual amino acids. But the chemical bonds which hold the amino acids of gluten together are really, really difficult for most people's stomach acid to break. So now, instead of individual amino acids, you get these big, complicated architectural strings of undigested protein. When the villi attempts to grab onto an individual amino acid, no problemo. But when the villi attempts to grab onto a long, complicated chain of unbroken amino acids, they become destroyed or they become inflamed. The more whole grains you eat, the harder it is for your body to absorb the nutrients that your stomach just digested.
Grains also contain other anti-nutrients like phytates and lignins, which are precursors to phytoestrogens that disrupt proper hormonal functioning.
Lignins are phytoestrogens that have been shown to directly inhibit steroid synthesis while increasing estrogenic activity in the body. So this first study actually shows an interference with the bioavailability in steroid metabolism. It also shows quite a bit of estrogenic activity in the body. Now this study shows how the researchers could use these dietary lignins to reduce the 5-alpha reductase enzyme, which is essential for the conversion of testosterone to DHT. Now, this study showed that genistein, which is one of the main phytoestrogens in flax seeds, causes an increase in uterine weight and has a direct effect on the mammary glands and the HPA axis in women. Anything that increases uterine weight or increases prostatic growth, you should stay far away from that. That's dangerous stuff.
Whole grains and other whole plant food products contain indigestible fiber.
I thought we needed fiber, not so much.
Not only is it not necessary, I think that it can actually be harmful.
It goes through our systems without being digested.
I mean, a lot of people take fiber because they say, well, this will move your bowels. But in fact, in a lot of cases, it ends up blocking them up because this is just cellulose at the end of the day. And you end up getting a block of wood stuck in your colon.
It goes into our colon. Gas is produced as a byproduct of fermentation.
Things are just dry and hard and they dry out. And that's when we started advising people to eat fiber in the first place. It was in the 1980s when everyone stopped eating fat and they all started getting constipation. So
eating a lot of fiber can worsen your symptoms.
But also physically, it gets in the way of your enzymatic relationship between your nutrients and then are now prevented from getting to the lumen of your intestines. You're actually slowing down and blocking the absorption of nutrients. I don't think that's evolutionarily, biologically viable.
Another problem with a breakfast like this is that it's severely lacking in complete nourishment. For example, a bowl of porridge oats with some apple and banana, a scoop of peanut butter and maybe a sprinkle of cinnamon seems reasonably balanced, but in fact has little to no essential fatty acids, essential amino acids, so your proteins, and many vital micronutrients. Instead of grains with pasteurized skimmed milk or almond milk and fruit, you may consider a nutritionally complete meal such as steak and eggs, preferably high quality, pasture-raised and cooked in animal fats. That way the animals will have been healthy from their natural diets, therefore you'll be providing yourself a healthy, well-balanced meal.
Let's talk about red meat because it's probably the most nutritionally dense.
All the essential macro and micronutrients can be found within red fatty meat and whole eggs alone. You could even have eggs and bacon mixed with high-fat mincemeat and grate some raw cheese on top for another well-balanced meal.
One of the big problems with the research is that when they're looking at what they consider to be red meat, they're actually conflating it with intake of junk food. And if somebody's eaten pizza, do you know what food group pizza gets classed as? Red meat.
Yeah, wow.
Because it might have a bit of meat on it.
Yeah.
If you're having a pizza, could you be having a soft drink perhaps at the same time? If you're the kind of person who takes care of your health and somebody says red meat is bad for you, say, fine, I'll eat less red meat. You're also the kind of person who will probably quit smoking. You'll try and get enough sleep. You'll exercise because you're told that that's good. So because of this association that red meat, it's been correlated, at least in the public perception, with ill health, a lot of the research is now subject to this healthy user bias. This is why the epidemiological research, or as some people term it, the epidemiological research, you just can't trust it.
As always, the most superior beverage will be water, as it applies to the entire animal kingdom. I realise many of us love our teas and coffees throughout the day, but it's worth at least a brief mention as to why this is counterintuitive for health.
There's a reason your doctor tells you not to drink tea when you have an iron supplement. If you're a vegetarian low in iron, the reason is because there's substances in the tea, like tannins and phytates, that will actually interfere with the absorption of the nutrients.
I want to caution everybody out there, if you're somebody who suffers from anxiety or panic attacks and you're not used to ingesting caffeine and you run out and ingest 400 milligrams of caffeine in the form of espresso or yerba mate or an energy drink, that is going to be very uncomfortable for you. You're going to be sweating profusely, your heart rate is going to increase, you're going to be quite panicked or at least anxious.
Are you all right?
Yeah, I was running.
And I recommend delaying your caffeine intake to 90 to 120 minutes after waking. I will caution those of you that think that you can drink caffeine in the evening or nighttime and still fall asleep. All of the research points to the fact that the architecture of your sleep and the depth of your sleep is disrupted. Even if you're able to fall and stay asleep, shut off your caffeine intake at least 8 hours before bedtime, and ideally more like 10 or even 12 hours before bedtime.
If you're one to skip breakfast and start with lunch instead, the same rules apply, as you'll still be breaking your fast, and your body will be hoping to receive complete nourishment without inflicting an inflammatory response. If you're used to taking food to work with you, something like boiled eggs with some cold sliced beef and raw cheese can work really well for you. Another alternative may look something like tin sardines in spring water with some boiled eggs and some prosciutto. Both options are nutrient dense, non-inflammatory, and very satiating. Any reliable authority on nutrition and dietary advice will always recommend having just 1 or 2 meals per day, not 3 or 5. In the recent past, the concept of eating little and often has been encouraged, but the body doesn't appreciate the task of metabolizing multiple meals per day, especially those that contain carbohydrates.
We stopped listening to our body because you were told to stop listening to your body. By who were you told? The press, the media, people around you, maybe your parents, that you got to eat 5 times a day. 5 times a day. The most nutritious meal of the day is the meal that you have. About 12,000 years ago, you changed and you started going into agriculture. So until then, you were a Paleolithic being where you ate mostly meat and drank lots of water. And when you were a Paleolithic being, none of you were such fantastic hunters that you could hunt and eat and kill every 3 hours. Our body is made to fast and is made to feast. That you should be fasting and feasting as well.
It's been well known that there aren't any essential carbohydrates, as the body doesn't require any for a single biological process. We certainly require glucose, but our bodies are well equipped to make our own supply endogenously, and we make just the right quantity instead of an excessive toxic amount. We do this via a process called gluconeogenesis.
So glucose, we clearly need. Our brain needs it. Our red blood cells need it. Parts of our kidney need it. There's certain cells that absolutely require glucose. The nice thing is the body is designed so we can make plenty of glucose through something called gluconeogenesis, which is a conversion of amino acids or glycerol from triglycerides, from fat. We can turn that into glucose, all the glucose we need, instead of over-consuming, because that's what we often do when we eat carbohydrates.
In terms of dinner, ideally, this will be your first or second meal of the day. Again, high-quality fatty red meat like beef or lamb or any ruminant animal is going to be the best source of complete nourishment. Accompanied with pasture-raised whole eggs and grass-fed butter, this will be a very healthy balanced meal. Liver and bone marrow are also extremely rich sources of bioavailable nutrients and can certainly be enjoyed alongside the daily staples being red meat and whole eggs. Wild-caught fatty fish like mackerel, sardines, and occasionally salmon are also pretty great options. Always cook in animal fats rather than toxic inflammatory seed oils.
Vegetable seed oils, totally processed. You need massive factories to produce vegetable seed oils. It is so processed, and yet now we consume that like it's going out of style. It's in all processed foods. And yet that food, if you look at your entire evolution as 24 hours, that food only came to you in the last 10 milliseconds. How do you expect your body to respond genetically and hormonally to that food that you only just introduced? So before you put anything new in your mouth, you got to decide that, is this in keeping with my genetics? This is very thought-provoking. Even agricultural products, it's very thought-provoking.
A well-sourced pure olive oil is acceptable as the oil is derived from the pulp and not the seed, much like coconut oil. But as science indicates, animal fats like beef tallow and grass-fed butter are much superior. Usually, a diverse, colourful plate is considered to be a healthy balanced meal, but is often comprised of lean meats and fish, very low in essential fatty acids and fat-soluble vitamins. Furthermore, most people are in the habit of loading their plate with an abundance of carbohydrates, including lots of veggies. A higher consumption of carbohydrates increases the demand for vitamin C, B1, so thiamine, and carnitine.
So glucose actually competes with vitamin C for uptake. So if you're not putting all this sugar into your body, a carbohydrate intensive diet, then you actually will absorb a higher fraction. Vitamin C is also used to produce something called carnitine, which is a molecule involved in fat metabolism. C-A-R-N, the first four letters. Now this is the Latin root for flesh. So carnitine is only found in meat. And if you don't eat meat, then you're not ingesting this. You have a much greater need for vitamin C to help your body synthesize this. That actually will have a vitamin C sparing effect. You're not using your vitamin C as much for this purpose. So on a low carbohydrate diet that includes meat, your vitamin C needs will actually be much less. The vitamin C content in your diet will be sufficient for your needs.
So a healthy ketogenic diet, or better still, a pure carnivore diet with very little to no carbs will allow more efficient absorption of nutrients. This is a truly balanced diet, a diet without glucose spikes and pesticides, anti-nutrients and plant defense chemicals, indigestible fiber and unnecessary weight gain. So what about vegan diets? Plant-based? Well, if compared with a standard Western diet, it may just come out on top, but apart from that, it's just about the worst diet any human can adopt.
The benefit of going to a vegan diet is that you are no longer on the standard Australian diet. You're not on a SAD diet. You can pick any diet you want. If you compare it to the very low bar that is the standard Australian diet, it is going to come out superior.
The WHO, who's very much anti-meat, and they talk about you want to have like plant-based or bug-based or all these sorts of different things, just anything but meat. They actually have a page on their website. It's called Natural Toxins Found in Food. And it just says in food, every single one comes from a plant or algae. Every single one. There isn't a single toxin that comes from meat. But vegetables are still good for you, right? It's like, get this through your head. You know, this stuff is poison.
Plant-based diets go against our natural design. They go against our biology and even our ecosystems.
The plant-based movement, the climate change movement, quite often has hidden agendas and quite often has big corporations behind it at spreading propaganda is probably a word I'd prefer to use, but let's call it spreading their message.
A true vegan diet does not exist without dead animals.
So many more animals are killed by plant-based agriculture than by animal-based agriculture.
If you don't feed the soil, you won't grow anything. We know this. The soil will be depleted. This discovery of fossil fuels and how we could use the fossil fuels to make fertilizer and we were growing. Now think for a second, fossil fuel, dead animals.
Yeah.
Without death, there is no life.
Yep, agree.
There is no such thing as a vegan diet. And if you think there is, you are kidding yourself. Do you know what replenishes topsoil? Grazing ruminant animals, running cattle is actually beneficial from a carbon balance perspective.
Vegan diets are absolutely destitute of complete nourishment, and most people quit after around 5.5 years. This comes down to the fact that a diet devoid of animal products is not balanced. It's the exact opposite of our species' appropriate diet.
What are the big things that you miss by being on a vegan diet?
The one that everybody knows about is vitamin B12. There's some people that talk about bacterial production way down in the colon and all of this, and that's basically garbage. You cannot have, by definition, a nutritionally complete vegan diet without extraneous supplementation.
For around 3 million years, humans and pre-human species have based their diets on large ruminant animals and other animal products.
It's common knowledge that every society that was forced to eat up a high plant diet, they either cooked it to death or they fermented it. And they didn't do that because they were ignorant. They did that because through thousands of generations of trial and error, they had figured out if you eat this shit raw, it's not good for you. There will be ramifications and repercussions. If you're going to eat plants, you need to cook the shit out of them. And so in many cultures, humans eat meat raw or very, very rare, but they cook the veg to death.
Red meat, dairy, and eggs are absolute winners when it comes to child's health, growth, and development.
To summarise, a balanced diet is simply one that is compatible with our biology, our natural human diet, the very one that allows us to be here in the first place. A diet so old, we've forgotten. Humans are hypercarnivorous. This means 70% minimum ruminant fatty red meat and other animal products. With the information that we have and what we do know, though not widely known, the moment we add any plant material into our diets, we offset balance one way or another. Drink water, not artificial, colourful, plant-derived fluids. This way our diet is nutrient-dense, non-inflammatory, with next to no toxins and other chemical culprits that can lead to chronic disease in humans. This is a truly balanced diet.
Do you honestly think that you can live in optimal health on a pure carnivore diet?
That's just our biology. This is our proper human diet. This is our biologically species-specific appropriate diet. And
absolutely. Eating a proper human diet is going to load the dice in your favor.
Is this all making sense now?